Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I'm here as always with my good friend Dan Wiseman. Dan, Fulham 1, Aston Villa 2. Amazing. Back-to-back Premier League away wins. London, painted claret and blue, not because of West Ham, but Aston Villa, mate. We are just running riot in the capital right now, aren't we, mate?
Yeah. What a week, mate. What a week. I think it was really important we got the win because it wasn't the easiest week last week for Villa fans. We had all of the stuff that we spoke about in the preview with that kind of letter that reportedly went to a few execs and everything like that. There were a lot of rumours swirling about the kind of conditions internally. I think at least on the pitch, the lads are showing that they can continue doing the business. And yeah, it's a shame that we're probably not coming into it a little bit sooner. It's been a very busy weekend for both you and I, but at least now, speaking about it, it's enabled us to kind of see the outcome of the United game and stuff like that. And we've got the kind of full picture of the Premier League table and how it sits around us going into what will be another important weekend of fixtures. So, yes, mate. Yes, a very, very, very important 3 points.
Absolutely. I was watching James Alcott this morning, and it was he does these like sort of prediction videos. I say prediction, they're not. They're like season simulations. And he's done them for probably about 2 years on his channel now. And there's this software that they use to sort of simulate all the games and stuff like that. And I believe they simulated it like 38,000 times or something like that. It may have been less. Maybe I'm exaggerating here. But the simulations had us finishing in fourth, like pretty much 60% of the time. So like, we've got a 60% chance of finishing fourth in the Premier League, which obviously, like, there's, we've sort of been seeing things with our eyes and we're not necessarily looking at the data, when we're sort of sat down in front of the TV or at Villa Park or, however people are choosing to watch. And, there was kind of a feeling that maybe this is slipping away after the United game, just with all the injuries and stuff like that. Because again, like, how do you put a number on Clement Longley or Pau Torres? And you simply can't, as Pau demonstrated at the weekend, didn't he? Back like he had never left. Absolutely phenomenal. So little things like that I do find quite interesting, but it feels like the general consensus, at least from the sort of data point of view, is that Villa will qualify for the Champions League in fourth spot. And certainly after the performance on the weekend, I do feel a little bit more confident and comfortable there. And, we kind of pointed out Fulham, not necessarily on the greatest run of form, but has historically been a bit of a difficult place for us to go. And, there were times in this game where it was difficult, really, mate, wasn't it? It was a bit of a grind after we got our 2 goals, weren't it? Because Fulham came back fighting and Muniz, who's been scoring recently, got himself a goal. And, you're looking at a totally different game there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's mad, isn't it? Like, I just think, I don't know. I think I'm just really happy with the result and performance.
Hey, mate, you and I both. It's not, and I know we kind of said in the preview, and Fulham weren't exactly setting the league alight before this, but they're not an easy side to beat at home. It's only their second league defeat at home in their last 8 games at Craven Cottage. They're first in 4. They hadn't lost at home in the Premier League since a defeat at home to Burnley back in December. So they'd gone at least an entire month unbeaten there. It's not an easy place to kind of go and get wins, and it wasn't an easy game, really. It wasn't a walk in the park by any means for the Villa, but what it was is, again, that it didn't really matter how we went and won it, to be honest with you. It just mattered that we walked out with 3 points, and we had to ride our luck a little at times. It wasn't totally comfortable. Not to kind of jump right to the end of the game, but Emi makes some very important saves throughout, the most important being the one-on-one against Adama very late on in the game. And so we had to give and take. It wasn't a stroll by any means. Fulham had more possession, more shots on target, more shots, passed the ball more, but we always looked that bit more clinical, I thought. We went through on goal. I think that probably speaks to the kind of players that we've got up front. I know Muniz is in a very good run of form, but he's still something that they're looking to polish. He's not quite the full package, but there's definitely a lot of bright sparks from him. But No, mate, the most important thing was that we went and got 3 points, and I think the result only looks more important as we kind of went through the weekend, whereas it came through that Spurs had lost at home against Wolves and that United then went and got 3 points on Sunday. The real kind of importance of this win was really cemented as we got through to Sunday evening, to be honest with you, because now we are in that mini league of ourselves, Spurs and Man United. I think it will be one of those 3 teams that qualifies for the Champions League in that 4th spot at the end of the season. And so it's going to be tight. We're only 2 points ahead of Spurs. And I know that, I think a lot of people, if they had to put money up, would probably back Spurs maybe in that race. I think they're probably our biggest competition, despite United only being 3 points behind them. But the most important thing is that we just keep on winning games, mate.
Yeah, we've got to, mate. We've got to. But, it kind of, we've come back in. I've already mentioned Torres coming back. This felt like Jacob Ramsey back at his best, or sort of getting to his best. And it's a shame that he's not credited with an assist for that first goal, isn't it, mate? Because really, that's all him, barring a terrible, terrible throw-in routine from Fulham. Obviously, he's alive to it, puts Willian on the floor, sort of lays it off to Ollie. I don't know how they're not counting. I'm literally watching the goal back right now. It must have taken a deflection off Issa Diop, just as he sort of nicks that ball over. But everyone's talking about the second Watkins goal. But for me, mate, this first goal, this is the absolute mustard. This is brilliant, mate. The turn, he doesn't have a lot of time. He's within the box, so you would back him, at least getting a shot on goal. Manages to put it the other side of Bernd Leno. The spin's fantastic. Spin, touch, bam. Leno didn't stand a chance. And I think it's time that we have a discussion about Ollie Watkins, because I think he's 15 goals off eclipsing Gabby Agbonlahor's record of being our Premier League top goal scorer, which, if we're being honest, is a bit of a stain on our fine club, with the least amount of disrespect intended to Gabby. Will always be remembered as a cult hero, Derby Day goals and everything. But the sooner that this happens, the better, really, because Ollie Watkins, and I'm going to sort of stick my neck out here, mate, and I'm sure we're very blessed at the Villa Filler to have quite a diverse sort of age group of fans. We have a lot of people who are in the sort of 50 plus category who will gladly put me in my place, and I encourage you guys to do so in the comment section down below. I think Ollie Watkins is Aston Villa's best ever striker, and it's in moments like this, it's in games like this. He's sort of gone a few games, barring the Sheffield United game, without a goal. Ollie's just the mustard man, and I sort of look at the spine of the team and I think, oh God, if we lost Emmy, that would be horrific. But I think you can find a goalkeeper that's good enough. Not better, but good enough. I think you can get away with another goalkeeper. I think Douglas Luiz, you can't replace. I think centre-backs, in terms of the attributes that Pau Torres has, you probably can't replace either. And Ollie Watkins, for what he can do, for what we paid, for what the sort of going rate for top-class strikers is currently right now, I do not think we can afford to lose Ollie Watkins. And I'm sure this podcast's probably 12 months ago of me saying if a huge offer came in that I would probably consider it. I'd like to redact that statement, because I think this man is so important, and I think for the longest time I have probably downplayed his importance to this side, mate.
I think he's probably, well, let's take it right back, mate. Let's strip this back to the core metrics, right? Simple statistics. Strikers are judged above all else on goal contributions. And so if you look at how he stacks up to the best strikers across, or the best goal scorers in general, really, across Europe's top 5 leagues, the most goal contributions in Europe's top 5 leagues this season by any player is Harry Kane, who has 30. You've then got Kylian Mbappe on 25, Mo Salah on 24, Ollie Watkins on 23, Lautaro Martinez on 22, and Erling Haaland on 21. So to speak to what you just said there, mate, about Ollie Watkins being replaceable, Aston Villa can't lure any other of the 5 players I've just mentioned to come and play in claret and blue. I'm sorry, we just can't. And so if we want to talk, like, genuinely, could you replace him with other players of a similar ilk that are putting out that kind of, like, output? can you replace him with a player that's going to get as many goals as assists as Ollie Watkins currently? The stats would tell you no. Realistically, we can't. And then, you've got other strikers, your Ossimens and guys like that aren't even in the frame there. His output really has been pretty incredible. And I think we've kind of become a little bit... I know that, there's not to say Villa fans aren't generally sold on Ollie Watkins, but there was a lot of debate on the timeline, and I think we are quite guilty of this as a fan base. Like, there was a tweet going around like, and some fans say he's not consistent, and then everyone was like, who's saying that he's not consistent? And then it's kind of, there's a lot of smoke and not a lot of fire. Do you know what I mean? Like, and so, but no, I think you're right. I think we probably both have been a little bit guilty about kind of underselling Ollie Watkins at points. He's not. There are moments where Ollie can go a few games without a goal, but I think that's what makes this statistic so impressive, is that generally, even when he's not playing the best, there's an assist. And I think that's the kind of element to his game that I think has really improved under Emery, is how he's not just improved in terms of goal scoring, but bringing other players into play as well. He's staying very central, managed to affect the games in the most important areas. And to kind of put up those numbers, I mean, 23 goal contributions this season is incredible. Only 3 players in the Premier League so far have 20 plus goals and assists. That's Salah and Haaland. He's really in elite company. And I think if you want Ollie Watkins, you can come and get him. I think it will cost you £100 million. I think for that kind of money, if someone's willing to come and put that down, you can't refuse that kind of cash, unfortunately. But I think that's what it takes to get Ollie out of this club. I really, really do, especially to another Premier League club. I just think that what he's doing is absolutely remarkable, and he is so important to this team. And it's why we've been so worried kind of when windows have passed, when we've not addressed the kind of backup striker issue, because God forbid if the day does come where we are without Ollie Watkins for a patch of games when our injury record isn't exactly blessed at the moment, then I think that would seriously derail the Champions League hopes that you and I were just talking about, mate. So yeah, he's absolutely crucial to this project.
Absolutely, mate. He is. He really is. And he's not the only person who's sort of been involved in the goals a lot recently as well. We've got to talk about the offside goal, mate, with Moreno, because one, our lovely viewers asked us to in the Q&A that you put out on the channel, in the community tab. And two, it just isn't offside. It's not offside. I'm looking at it now.
Yeah.
Is it Bailey that Ream is sort of tugging with, where they're sort of they've drawn the line? Ream having this sort of wrestling match with Leon has played Moreno onside. If he just sort of let Leon do what he was doing, there's 2 Villa players offside there. This is a perfectly legitimate goal, and it's just I can't believe we're sat here and it's another topic of discussion. VAR getting it wrong again. We've sort of had to see interference with VAR this weekend with that Mason Holgate tackle, which was just absolutely horrific, and I can't believe that was given as a yellow card anyway. I was at that game, I was in the stands, and when he gave a yellow, the whole stadium, but I'm sure you could probably hear it on the telly, the whole stadium booed the referee. But the moment that Mason Holgate's foot left the ground, I just winced. I thought there's no way that wasn't a red card. Obviously, it gets upgraded. VAR got that one right. I mean, if it didn't, Jesus Christ, what's the point? But VAR, it's just so bad. Like, how is this not fit for purpose? And the ref doesn't even check the monitor in this instance, does he, mate? He just sort of goes off what he's being told from Stockley Park as well, which just makes it that bit more frustrating. And I know we got the win, so it should, it's not like it's sour grapes or anything like that. But at that stage of the game, it's a completely, we're looking at a completely different second half for Villa, really, aren't we?
Well, it's lucky that we did win, I think, because this will be a footnote and won't be spoken about outside of Villa circles. Probably after, as soon as we kick off next weekend, it will be forgotten. But that doesn't make it right, really. It's very fortunate that this wasn't important, but it's not important now. It's not important now, but we've just mentioned that really close kind of race for the top 4 with Spurs and Man United, and it's a matter of kind of 3 points, 5 points that are separating teams. And when you add the fact that we've got a run until May, like, goal difference could very well come into it. It almost did last season in the race with Spurs and Brighton. So we know that it can be that close. It genuinely can. And so get any extra goals here and there can be really important. And so I hope it doesn't. But yeah, it is very frustrating, mate. I do definitely think they got that one wrong. I will, however, side with them with the penalty. I don't. I could, if it was given, I don't think you could complain. I personally, I think there's enough on the ball there. I really do. I think it's a little bit clumsy. It's a little bit clumsy, but it's probably one of those where if one of our centre backs does it, we're probably not as up in arms about it. And so, yeah, I think the offside was definitely a mistake. But I've watched the penalty, or the supposed penalty, back a couple of times, and yeah, I definitely see where people are coming from. But I think there's enough on the ball. I think it's okay.
Yeah, I think you just, again, and it shouldn't be like this, but you do have to take the rough with the smooth with VAR and like try not to get too bothered about it. I say that after I've just had a giant rant about it, but we have had them given against us. There was a compilation going around of there was the Watkins one from 2 seasons ago, I want to say. Lloris just completely takes him out, isn't given. You've got things like that. I don't think it was as clear cut as that one, if I'm being completely honest. But yeah, I can see why you would feel that way about that one, mate. To be honest, I don't really have too much of an opinion on that one, if I'm being completely honest. But I think while we're talking about sort of improved players, we sort of touched on a little bit there with Ramsey and how he's sort of getting back to his best. I have to give Matty Cash the credit that he deserves, because I've probably been one of his biggest critics in recent weeks. And generally, I thought it was a pretty solid performance from him. And especially when you kind of look at who he had to deal with on that side, he had Willian, who has sort of having this amazing sort of remontada of his career since he's come back to Fulham. And then to deal with Anthony Robinson on the overlap play, who I am really fond of, is just an absolute athlete. The guy cannot stop running, does not stop running. And I thought Kashi just dealt with them both in general really well. So I feel like I owe him the shout out, because I've been quite vocal in my frustrations with him in recent weeks, mate.
Yeah, no, nice, mate. I think he's playing well. Again, I think Matty Cash is a perfect example of just how far this has come, the football club, and how we're kind of getting a bit arsy now about a standard of player that literally only a few years ago we would have given our right arm for. Matty Cash is a very, very good footballer, and I'm not saying that we can't improve there or anything like that, but yeah, he is a fantastic footballer, and the fact that he is, if Matty Cash is a weak spot in your team, and I mean this for almost any team in the world, if you have a player of Matty Cash's level and you're able to say that, yeah, that's the weakest position we have, you're doing pretty well.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely. And I don't know. I'm a lot of people recently been talking about weaknesses, and again, we love Clement Longley. We think he's great. He's not Pau, but he's not terrible, that's for sure. I think this was the sort of debate we had before the game, wasn't it, mate? It's like, that old 2 left footers, is it like an old wives' tale, this and that? I think we got the balance right, choosing to play Pau on the left rather than on the right. I think this was quite smart for him, because we have seen in recent weeks Pau Longley has struggled somewhat when sort of being aggressively pressed. Not necessarily him, but when the ball when Martinez has the ball at his feet and he's got 1 or 2 attackers pressing him, he's making a quick pass that is definitely not up to scratch to Clement, and we've kind of seen he's sort of given the attackers almost the ball on a silver plate a couple of times, haven't we? I think by us sort of putting Clement on that right-hand side, us really keeping the focus on the left of the play, pretty much every ball Emi had went out to Pau, and then Pau did the rest, and it just let Clement focus on defending. I think that was the best way to sort of approach this, and we've definitely looked more balanced earlier on in the season, with other partnerships, even with Diego or whoever else that may be. But it worked, mate, didn't it?
It really did, mate. It really did. It was a joy to have Pau back in the back line. He does this, it's so underrated. And I think, honestly, if you watch most of our best goals, our best passing goals this season, it all starts with Pau, and he kind of does this thing where he'll take like 1 or 2 steps out of the back line, and then just when he's kind of level with the attacker, he'll drop a very short pass into someone like Douglas Luiz, and it just kind of break the lines with a really simple kind of 2 or 3 touches. And it's so, I know it sounds so simple and it looks so simple, but it's always so effective. One of his passes, and it's very rare that, Pau is wonderful on the ball, but how many times has he played like a 30, 40-yard raking ball forward to one of our attackers to race onto and score? Once or twice, admittedly, but how important he is to just starting moves in the most like simple of fashion. Like, you really can't, and it looks so simple, but his game is just so wonderfully effective that he does kind of simplify things. And we've kind of spoken about how it's no slight on Longley that he can't do that, because there aren't honestly many other centre-backs in Europe that can. But yeah, Clement, honestly, I think is, and I'm liking that. I think the narrative around Clement Longley has really changed. There was kind of some polls going around saying, would you buy Clement Longley and everything like that? And I'm kind of looking at this and going, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I really, really would. I think for someone that, honestly, the thing, and I've spoken about this many times, so, people that have listened to this podcast a fair few times this season, I'll sound like a broken record, but he is so willing to accept any role in this squad, which I think is incredible considering he's on loan from Barcelona. Obviously, he's played a lot of football now, but that is because of injuries. At the start of the season, he was basically being used to rotate in for Europa Conference League group stage games, and that was it. He was not getting a sniff of Premier League football, and now he's kind of getting shunted out to the right side of a back four. He's playing, alongside almost a new centre-half partner every couple of weeks, given the injuries and everything like that. And you never hear a peep out of him. He just goes out there, 9 times out of 10, does a very, very good job. And I just love that. I really love kind of what he's been for this squad. He's been such an underrated part of our success this season. And yeah, I'm all for it. He's only 28 as well, so he's got he's got so many years ahead of him. And yeah, honestly, I think that back two, the ball playing abilities in there is just fantastic. It opens up so many possibilities. And yeah, I think Longley is always deserving of a shout out, because yeah, as soon as we have our entire back forfeit, he'll be back to the bench, and again, he would just do that, accept his role in the squad, and carry on playing when he's needed.
Yeah, I think when you look at the situation as well, like sort of approaching like end of December, early January, there was all this talk about, he's not satisfied with his game time or whatever, wanted the move to AC Milan. Could you imagine if we sort of allowed that and terminated the loan deal, the situation we'd be in right now? Again, like I did float the idea around of Callum Chambers playing, but like, I know that's definitely not a popular option amongst Villa fans. having Chambers sort of slot in at centre half. So yeah, you have to rate the sort of perseverance and the sort of the I don't know if like him accepting a role is like the right way to look at it. I think there is genuine competition for that space, and it may it is sort of circumstantial, the sort of how he's initially got his way into the side more regularly, but through performances that he's put in, as we've gone on about for weeks now, mate, he's deserving of his spot in the side, isn't he? And probably does pose a bit of a sort of selection dilemma when we have a few more options back. But back on Torres, mate, because we had a comment from the post that you put up, mate, from Carl Moores. Is Majestic Torres our most valuable player in terms of influencing the way we play? I think the short answer is yes, mate, isn't it? I think he absolutely is. I did say earlier on how important Dougie and Ollie are, but we've seen it in this past month or so where we've sort of been without Pau, how difficult we found it to sort of, as you say, break the lines, break teams down. And he seems like he's the only player in the squad capable of just switching the play at any given time without having to make 5 passes like across the back line. Like he is just one pass and it's already in the opposition's corner. Like it's that easy.
He is, in terms of, I think that's a really, really well worded question. I think in terms of influencing the way we play, he's our most important player. I don't think he is the most important player in terms of, as we kind of did earlier, if we had to rank players in terms of who we'd like to sell the least, probably wouldn't be at the top of the list. But in terms of how he is able to impact Unai Emery's brand of football, I really don't think that's a bad shout at all.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Had a few more questions that we could go through, but I just lost internet. They're back now. How do we build on this and gain some sustainability? Well, I think and that's from Thomas Lawrence. So thank you for your question, mate. I think that honestly the run of fixtures is relatively kind. I think when you look, obviously we've got Forest at the weekend, then it's Luton. I can't remember who we've got after that, but I think, sort of short term, when you look, there's teams like City and Liverpool that are having to sort of cram games in. Chelsea too, they've got a double game week coming up. A lot of teams will, just due to the cup final, things having to get moved, all that kind of thing. It almost suits us in a way. I know Spurs will have a week off as well because of this cup final and the games being moved. So that probably does benefit them. But I think for now, I know we're probably 4, maybe 5 games away from having to play another European game. But for me, all we can do now is just focus on the league. And then obviously when the Conference League comes back, then it's all attention on that really for those sort of two legs, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the answer is honestly, once we see, we've just been speaking about the answer, how coming back and how impactful and so important to our success is Pau Torres. And I think honestly, in terms of sustainability and just maintaining consistency, I think the answer might just be getting guys back from injury. I think it could be that simple. I know that that seems slightly reductive, and I know that with some of them, with Boob and stuff, we're going to have to wait a long, long time. But as we start to see more and more options come through, and the bench starts to pad up nicely, and we start to see, some of the guys that someone like Morgan Rogers start to find his feet a little bit more and just give us another kind of option from the bench. The more that we're able to pad out that squad, the better. And I think when we are at full capacity, when we're at full strength, we're just such a different team to even if you kind of take 2 or 3 players out. To someone like Pau Torres, for example, who's so important to the way we play. You just take him out, it just looks so different. And so I think now just keep guys fit. We need to be kind of really almost tiptoeing through these games, really. And the good thing is that we have some really winnable games coming up. I'd say they're definitely you look at the next 2 games against Forest and Luton, and they're games that we really need to win. We really need to kind of pick up 6 points there, because then you've got Spurs, West Ham, Wolves, City, Brentford, Arsenal, which represents a much tougher run, really. And you don't want to kind of look back at Forest at home or Luton away, and no disrespect to those teams whatsoever, but you really we do need to be getting points there.
No, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Final question before we just sort of briefly touch on the Palace game. Were there any players that you thought were under par at all? Just one for me, but I don't want to influence your opinions. I don't really know. I think if I'm being really harsh, and this is caveated with the really harsh, I think Tielemans will be disappointed he didn't get a goal with the chance that he had. And he's sort of had that kind of chance has fallen to him in a counter-attacking situation where we've sort of been 3 on 2, 4 on 3, and that's just, he doesn't seem to score from these positions. Again, as I said, I'm being incredibly harsh here, but maybe Yuri would sort of beat himself up after the game for not getting on the score sheet. But the pass for Watkins to the second goal was sublime.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I think, to be honest, his goal against United, it was Sheffield United. That is it's a surprise that it's kind of taken him I think that was his first goal in the league, maybe. Obviously, I know he got one in the Conference League, got one away at Alkmaar, but yeah, probably hasn't been as many goals as maybe we and he thought he was going to have at this point in the season. So it'd be nice to see that start to rack up, because there's a genuine, that's someone, when he's playing at his best, you can easily get double-digit goal contributions out of a season, easily. And so once he starts to do that, it really kind of opens up the squad. I didn't think, it's not a bad game. I didn't think Moreno was incredible. I think that it'd be really interesting to kind of see what Digne looks like there once he's kind of back fully fit, who kind of nails down that left back spot. But again, I didn't think it was a really bad game from him. I just thought that of the players on the pitch, maybe he's the answer there for the one that kind of, didn't have an afternoon to remember. But again, I'm being super critical.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to sort of look at players after a game like that, isn't it, mate? Just because I feel like it was a really there was a camaraderie, It felt like it was hard fought. So I'm absolutely happy with that, mate. But before we go, we've got to talk about Nottingham Forest. I think I said Crystal Palace a minute ago. They're playing now, so I had an eye on that in the corner. But big win for them. Big win for them this weekend, mate, against West Ham. 2-0. Iwani, always good for a goal when he's fit. And Callum Hudson-Odoi, you have to take a minute and remember he's only 23. It feels like he's been around for the longest time, and I think people have written him off, but he's got a couple of assists in recent games as well. So maybe we're seeing the best of Callum Hudson-Odoi again, as I've just head-butted my microphone. We need revenge on Nottingham Forest, mate. They did a number on us. They did an absolute number on us, mate. That is probably, in a season where there hasn't been many lows, a low point, that away trip to the City grounds. And it's Nuno, man. It's Nuno. They're going to... He's horrible to play against. He's horrible to play against. Everyone's going to get behind the ball. Everybody's going to cover a lot of ground. And again, we may as well just call this podcast the Pau Torres filler podcast, because he's going to be key to breaking these lot down. He's going to absolutely be key. His composure, his range of passing. This is what you need against a Nuno Espirito Santo side.
Yeah, I think the thing is here, this is a game where it really kind of does fall on the defence, I think, because I think you can go into this with relative confidence that we will get on the score sheet. That 2-0 win against West Ham was, I think, the first time Forest have kept a clean sheet in 14 games. And so particularly as we know that since they've been promoted, really, they're not a side that have travelled very well at all. We know that there's a good chance that we can get on the score sheet here. And so if we can keep it tight, and football is a very simple game. If we don't concede and they do, then we're going to win this football match. And so I think if we can make sure that we keep Villa Park a very positive place, that it's a nice place to go and play football, then I think we can be okay here. I think this is a result that we got a very important win against them last season. It was one of our final home games of the season. It was the game after kind of a very similar kind of game, really, actually. It was the game where we won late against Leicester. Pau Torres scored, and then he followed it up with a goal in the next game as well. And the kind of feeling of coming off a back of a big away win like we did in that Leicester game and like we did here, very tight, and we've gotten through it. It's a big 3 points, and we're coming back to Villa Park. It's kind of a very similar air about them. And so, yeah, I think, look, this is a game that we kind of definitely can win. I don't think they'll be coming into this game thinking that they're going to walk away with 3 points, but it won't be easy. You're absolutely right. They have definitely turned a corner since Nuno came in. They seem to be kind of well clear now. Or they're pulling themselves well clear of that relegation gap. I know it's kind of only 4 points as we sit, but honestly, I think that with the way that kind of they're playing, it ended a very... I think it was like 4 games they'd gone without a win, so it was much needed points. But I think those kind of home games will carry them through, and I think they will drag themselves well clear of that gap. But I think they've got games that they will really judge themselves on, and I don't think away against us is one of them necessarily.
No, I mean there's a looming sort of points deduction as well potentially. So they've got to sort of take every game as sort of a chance of survival, really, because nothing is guaranteed. But you sort of look back over their form. They've played a lot of games recently. They've had 2 sort of cup replays that they've had to get through. And before their win against West Ham, their last win in the league was actually against Manchester United, which feels like an absolute decade ago. But that felt like a really big win for them at the time as well. This is going to be difficult, mate. I'm going to have to ask you for a score prediction. I'm not going to go first this time. I'm sorry. I can't give you that liberty this time.
Villa are back. 3-0.
3-0. Woo! I'll take that, mate. I'll take that. I'm going to go 2. I'm going to go 2 purely because we can't go for the same, but I'm feeling confident as well. Villa are back. You're right. We're back. Let's enjoy it while we can. Enjoy it to every game as they come. Because, you know, I mean, we're in the back end of the season now. Europe will be back soon, which is just another exciting adventure for us to go on. And yeah, guys, make sure, if you haven't already, you subscribe to us on YouTube and you're following the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you choose to listen to your podcasts. It helps us out more than you could imagine. So yeah, leave your predictions in the comment section down below. Subscribe for more, and up the Villa.